Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Delivering Happiness live event. We're very excited you're here. We're going to give everyone a few minutes, few seconds to just kind of get in, get situated, get a cup of coffee, whatever you need to do to get ready for a really exciting presentation. So go ahead and get your cup of coffee, refill your water, grab your lunch, and we'll get to chatting.
I'll try to awkwardly hold my smile for 20 seconds while we wait.
All right, so why don't we have a bunch of people watching now, so why don't we go ahead and kind of get started very slowly while people trickle in the East Coast. It's the end of lunch, so we'll let them trickle in. I am Stephanie. I am a member of the Delivering Happiness team, the social ninja, if you will. I handle our social media presence and navigate some of the digital side of Delivering Happiness. With me is Paul Osincup. He's also a member of the Delivering Happiness team, and he is your speaker today. I am just introducing him, and I'll be back at the end. So I'm going to say goodbye and let Paul take over from here.
All right. Thank you. And hi to everybody. I'm so happy to be here doing this live on LinkedIn and Facebook. And so hello to everyone who's joining us live. Feel free to type in the chat where you're coming in from. And then as you have questions, go ahead and type those in there. And we'll try to get to some questions at the end. If we don't have time, we'll follow up and answer all of them. So yeah, hi to everyone joining us live. Maybe some of you are watching this in the future on a recording. So hi to everybody in the future. I hope the future is treating you well. If you're watching this in the past, then I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. Congratulations on inventing time travel. And here we go. All right. So my name is Paul Osincup, and just a little bit about me. My background is in higher education administration. And so specifically conflict resolution and alternative dispute resolution. So at the university level, I worked with college students to help them navigate difficult conflict situations with one another, with faculty, staff, and even with local law enforcement when students got themselves in trouble, and helping them navigate those conflicts. So with some of that conflict resolution background, and I also taught graduate courses on communication and human relations. And so my hope for today is to just take a few simple things that you can do with communication to infuse a little positivity into your work culture, particularly if maybe there's a couple people who are a little bit negative that you work with, how you can kind of sneak some positivity in there with the way you communicate. And if more than one people do this in your organization, it starts to really have a ripple effect and an impact on the overall climate and culture of where you work. I mean, I've worked places before where it's like you get the Sunday scaries, Sunday afternoon rolls around and you're just like, I don't want to go to work tomorrow. And I don't think anyone should have to deal with that. Workplaces should be places where people can be productive and happy and even fun at times. So that's my hope, is that you take something away from this that you think, I could use that right away. When we're thinking about this, I want you to think whether it's customers or whether it's, external customers or internal customers, or, fellow team members, other departments, using some of these strategies. And we all know that there's some people that we work with that maybe just complain too much or might be negative. Sometimes I call them one-uppers, like somebody who, they ask you how you're doing just so they can tell you how they're doing and how things have been so terrible or whatever. Like they go, how you doing? And you go, I'm okay, a little tired today, but doing all right. And they go, you're tired. I only got like 2 hours of sleep last night and I didn't get any sleep the night before. And you're like, okay, you win. You're more tired than me. So you probably know somebody like that. If you're not sure who in your life that is, it might be you. And that's okay, because hopefully these strategies will help you turn things a little more positive. Because even when I was first out of graduate school, I got into a job and I found myself about 3 months in being very negative. I felt like I knew everything. I was constantly challenging my supervisors. And I realized at one point that this isn't who I am. Usually people really like working with me, and I'm like the fun, upbeat, outgoing guy that people really enjoy. And so I had to consciously think about, how do I return to being a positive person that I kind of envision myself as? And I think any of us can get stuck in these kind of cycles of negativity. So one simple way, I'm kind of going to start with the most broad things and then move to more specific strategies. So one simple way is just changing our language to be more positive in a lot of different circumstances. So here's one example. A lot of times people might ask you about doing something. Maybe it's a customer, maybe it's a colleague. And rather than saying, I can't, literally just saying, well, what I can do is. I do a lot of workshops with people using improv skills as communication strategies. And one of the first rules in improv is thinking yes and. So rather than going, no, I can't do that, going, well, what can I do? How can I kind of say yes to this request? Simple changes in our language start to add a much different feeling in the overall climate of a workplace. So another one would be, rather than telling someone, you have to do this. All right. You have to, it would help if you did these things. Now, maybe you're at a point with somebody where you have said things nicely and that kind of stuff, and you need to be very, very direct. But most of the time, we can form our language in a positive way, particularly in the beginning. So, hey, it would help if you took care of these 4 things for me. Or if you're having a conversation about policies, look, it's not our policy to do that. We don't do that. Well, typically, this is what we do. Usually this is what we do. Just minor tweaks to the language we use, rather than that's not right or you're wrong. My understanding is this. So, and then maybe asking, what's your understanding? So rather than, hey, that's totally off base, man. Well, my understanding is this. How do you see it? And again, this is another kind of yes and strategy. Someone says, hey, do you have that? Do you have that third quarter sales report, or what's our sales look like for this last quarter? Rather than just going, I don't know, thinking, how can I say yes? Well, I'll find out. So can you get our third quarter sales report? Yeah, I'll find out. I'll see where I can find that. Rather than you don't understand or you're just not getting it, let me clarify. Maybe I wasn't as clear as I could have been. Might not be that somebody doesn't understand. It might be that we just didn't communicate something clear enough. So, hey, let me just clarify this for you. And this one seems like it shouldn't be that big a thing, but I have noticed it has a huge impact. I always used to say, and sometimes still fall into the habit of saying no problem. People say, oh, thanks. And I go, yeah, no problem. Or yeah, it's fine. What a difference it makes in the overall feeling when instead of saying no problem or saying, yeah, saying my pleasure or absolutely. I have found, I've really worked on this. It makes such a big difference in the overall vibe. Even when I'm not talking at work, even like, I hold the door open for somebody at the grocery store and they say, thanks. And I go, oh, absolutely. If a lot of people in a work environment were making subtle changes to the way they communicate and their language, what happens is the overall climate and feeling in general feels more positive. The other thing that really helps with these is when we're dealing with people who are getting agitated. And anytime we use like no problem, that's 2 negative words, no and problem. And it kind of insinuates that like maybe sometimes this would be a problem, but right now I'm letting it pass. Or you don't understand. A lot of times those negative phrases start to get the hackles up, and people get defensive and people put their guards up. When we can change things to be a little bit more positive, it eases tensions. People's guards don't go up as easily. So that's the first thing, is just slight tweaks to our language that we use when we talk every day. Another example, sometimes I was talking about people who are complaining a lot. I know in a work setting, particularly in the United States, people love to complain about things like winter or Mondays. People, it's like, oh, I can't believe it's already winter. Oh, man, it seems like it just went straight summer to winter. Now it's going to be cold and dark for the next 3 months. And then another person will chime in and go, I know, this is miserable. And if you find that, a couple of complaints here and there, no big deal. But if you find there's a couple people who are getting into this negative complaining cycle, or like, oh man, it's Monday, this week's going to be brutal. The weekend just went by too fast. And another person chimes in, I know, I hate this. The most simple thing to do, maybe you feel like you don't want to directly confront them, or you're not in a position to do that, or it's not the right moment, then one of the best things you can do is just make one positive statement, because what it does is it's a circuit breaker. It's a negativity circuit breaker. So people will be complaining and they get into this little drain spout of negativity, and another person adds in. One positive comment almost always stops that. So when someone's going, oh man, I can't believe it's winter already. Oh, it's going to be dark forever. And you go, oh, but I sure love holding my warm drink during the winter, or I love bundling up in my big comfy sweater. Typically, that will break that negativity circuit. I use this all the time with friends, family, coworkers, and people don't even notice you're doing it. And it almost always stops that negativity cycle. This also works, for example, when people are talking crap about other colleagues. Maybe they're complaining about somebody else who's not there. And that's an uncomfortable situation to be in sometimes. And usually there's, 2 or 3 people doing it. And then there are other people around who aren't joining in, but might feel pressured to join in or to laugh or just feel uncomfortable. You can circuit break this same thing. So has somebody George put, hey, winter's here. That means the holidays are coming. Great example of the positive statement. So let's say people are saying, talking about Jessica, who's not around, and going, oh my gosh, Jessica's always late to these Zoom meetings. And another person chimes in and goes, I know, she's always late. And then she talks so much that we end up having to go long. So it's like, we have to go long because she's come in late. You can just say something positive like, yeah, she helped me knock out the rest of my sales calls last week so I could get out on vacation at the end of the week. So I really appreciated that. It almost always stops the complaining and the talking about Jessica. Now, you may or may not change those people's minds about Jessica, right? They might go off by themselves sometimes and still talk about her. Or they might continue then, in which case you could make another positive statement like, I think she's pretty funny, because what it's doing, you're not trying to get in an argument with them. You're not trying to change their mind. You're simply trying to break the negativity circuit and also give an opportunity for the people, the neutral third parties who are feeling uncomfortable around. You're providing psychological safety and setting a culture tone that, like, here we don't do that. We try to be positive. We don't talk negative about people behind their back. And so the people who are, neutral third parties around will probably feel relieved, like, oh, okay, that stopped. And a lot of times they'll jump in on your positive statement. You say, you say that she helped you with your sales report, and someone might go, yeah, she's really good at those sales calls. And now the whole conversation has shifted. So what that is doing is, in a situation where it's not the appropriate time to confront someone directly, or you don't feel comfortable, you're able to stop that negative conversation very easily. And then you can follow up later if you feel like that's appropriate. So here's another one, another opportunity. Maybe you do want to directly confront someone about something they did or said, but you can still do that in a positive way. A lot of times what happens is we get caught up in our emotions when something happens, and then people will hook us in an argument into being sarcastic or kind of more attacking and confrontational in our tone, when even we may not want to be that way. I did this conflict resolution stuff for a living, and I used to have to make decisions on whether or not students could stay in school or not. And I still found myself, I think this is something to really pay attention to more when you're burnt out and stressed, because I still found myself one time not at my best. I felt like one of the things I was the best at in that job was connecting with students, really listening and empathizing with them. But I remember a time when I had been coming in on weekends and working way too much. And I was pretty burnt. And I was meeting with this one young man, like 24-year-old young man who I had met with before a couple times and given him a couple opportunities to turn things around, change his behavior. And he got in more trouble. And I had told him, like, if you get in more trouble, you're going to end up getting suspended from the university, which is like a minimum 1 year. So it's a big deal. And unfortunately, he ended up back and he had gotten in even more trouble, put himself and others in danger. And this guy was very entitled. His parents had really never held him accountable for any of the trouble he'd been in. All his messes had been cleaned up by other people. So he wasn't used to being held accountable for this. And so when I met with him and I told him, hey, unfortunately, today's the day we talked about before. And because of this, you're going to need to be suspended from the institution. And I want to walk you through what that's going to look like and what your options are. And he goes, you're suspending me. And I was like, well, yeah, I just want to make sure you understand what that means and what you can do in order to come back and what resources you have. And he goes, this is a joke. Your job's a joke, man. I hope you like this. I hope you like doing this. And I was trying to be patient, but I wasn't at my best that day. And he sucked me into the emotion of it. And so he pulls his cell phone out and he throws it on the table and he goes, call my mom and tell her what you just did. Tell her you're going to suspend me. So I looked at him and I was like, does your mom want to talk to my mom? And he was like, what? And I was like, I mean, if your mom wants to talk to my mom, they can hash this out, but this conversation's between me and you. Now, I'll be honest, like in the moment, it felt good to say that, right? That's one of those things that you think later in the car driving home that you're like, what I should have said to him was, and you never actually say. But do you think that actually helped the situation, me saying that? No. It did not help the situation, obviously, but he sucked me into getting into this kind of like emotional argument with him. Now, what's nice is to have some kind of a formula or some type of conversation starter that is easy to remember and do for moments when you feel like you might have a difficult time remaining neutral or calm. So you've probably heard of I statements before, like I feel this. But what I want to teach you is something straight from nonviolent communication. And it's called an affective statement. So it takes an I statement kind of to the next level and adds on from there. So an I statement starts with I feel. But then we add on from there. So you go, I feel blank, and you say, I'm going to get this right at some point. Here we go. I feel blank, and then you say a feeling word, and then you say the behavior specifically that you're concerned about. Then we tell them why. Because blank, and then what I need or what I'd like is this. So the entire thing, let's go back to our situation, say with Jessica. And you've got colleagues or somebody who is talking about Jessica behind her back, and you want to confront that person. So you pull them aside, not in front of other people. And then you could say like, hey, I just want to let you know that I feel sad when I hear you talking about Jessica like that because I want people to be able to work in a place where everyone feels comfortable and welcome. So what I really need is for you, if you've got some issues with Jessica, to follow up with her directly. And if you're not able to do that, come to me and I can help you figure it out. That would be an example for that situation. You could do this for all sorts of situations. Maybe there's somebody that you notice is rolling their eyes constantly in your meetings. Or giving bad body language, negative body language, talking to them, say, I just want to let you know that I felt really worried when I saw you rolling your eyes during the meeting, because it makes me think maybe there's something else going on, or that you're disagreeing with something but not able to tell me. What I'd really like is to have a relationship where if you disagree or there's something going on, you're able to talk to me about that. What I love about this structure is really you can use it as an invitation for further conversation. I've used this structure in emails, saying, I really felt this when you did this because blah, blah, blah. And then invited, I wanted to put this in writing, to kind of get the conversation started, but I'd love to talk to you personally about it. So I'll be honest, when I first learned stuff like this, I thought, this is like puppy dogs and ice cream stuff. This doesn't really, is this really going to work? But it does. Most of the time, people don't know you're doing it. What I find very helpful about it is I can name the emotion that I'm feeling. And as a leader, if you're a manager, a supervisor of other people, a lot of times we feel like we want to, I need to be authoritative here and say, hey, I saw you rolling your eyes. That's not cool. Or you're talking about Jessica. We don't do that here. But actually what the research tells us is that these affective statements are much more impactful on behavior because it humanizes the sender. When you tell somebody that their behavior made you worried or made you sad or confused, unless they're a sociopath, which we probably work with very few real sociopaths, they can't help but feel some sort of empathy there and want to do better and not want you to feel that way. They start to see how their behavior actually impacts you. Like, oh man, I made my manager sad. So it's a pretty helpful thing if you're going to practice this. Now, when I do workshops with stuff like this, people go, oh, that seems really easy. I could totally do that or whatever. But then we workshop it right then and there. And, it's a little clumsy at first. People it's their turn to do it. And they're like, okay, I feel. So here's a couple tips when you're doing this. One is really think about the feeling word that you feel, because a lot of times the first thing that comes up is frustrated or disrespected. Those two are the top things. And that's okay if you're really feeling that. But if every time you do this, you say you're frustrated, it starts to lose its impact. Maybe you're discouraged. Maybe you're exhausted. It might not be frustrated. So you can always Google feeling words or whatever and kind of really get to what it is you're really feeling. The other thing is make it your own. It doesn't have to be perfect all the time. I know when I did it that I told you that I used to think this was all like kind of soft skill stuff that wouldn't really help. But I tell you, even during a really difficult situation, I was meeting with a 32-year-old ex Special Ops Army Ranger who had gotten in a lot of trouble, assaulted someone. We were talking about his future, very difficult conversation. And he got angry and he stood up at the table over me and was yelling, and I was afraid. And so this affective statement just came out of my mouth. He was standing over me yelling, and I go, hey, look, man, I'm just really scared right now because I feel like you might hit me. I just need you to take a deep breath and have a seat. And sure enough, if he didn't go, I know, I'm sorry, I'm not mad at you, I'm just really upset. And I was like, oh my gosh, this totally works. So I know that in situations, I was even doing a workshop around these affective statements with a police department. And you could imagine a bunch of uniformed officers, and we're doing like, I feel this and that kind of stuff, because we're talking about getting more compliance and less confrontation on minor conversations with people. And so there were a couple cops who were kind of in the corner chatting and making jokes and stuff while we were workshopping this a little bit. And so I said, hey, you guys, I'm just feeling a little distracted here when you guys are talking in the corner because I'm trying to help these people learn this. So I need you to quiet down the conversation and come back over here. And sure enough, they didn't go, oh, all right, yeah, no problem. And then I pointed out to the group, look, I just used it. It worked. And they were like, oh, man. Anyway, I actually had one of those police officers come back later to a different training. And he said, hey, I tried your feeling statement thing that you did. There was this neighborhood where people are always running a stop sign. And so I tried that and it worked. I said, yeah. And he said, yeah, she ran a stop sign and I came up and I said, hey, ma'am, I get really scared when I see people running the stop sign because there's a lot of kids that live in this neighborhood and I'm worried that kids going to get hurt. So I need you to come to a complete stop when you stop at these stop signs. And I said, what happened? He said, the lady started crying. She's like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I know. And I said, well, did you give her a ticket? And he goes, yeah, I gave her a ticket. She ran a stop sign, but she didn't get upset with me. She was like apologetic. So I was like, wow, it's amazing how a little positive communication. The nice thing about this also is that although this is positive, we're still holding people accountable to their behavior. We're telling them how it makes us feel, specifically telling them what the behavior is we don't like and why we don't like it and what we'd like to see different, which usually we don't do. Usually we say, hey, don't do that, man. I saw that or whatever. And we get a little bit lazy with it. So focus on the feeling. If you can't get the whole thing out, first start with just focusing on the feeling. And then if you want to practice this, you can practice in the positive. So you can tell your team like, hey, everyone, I just want to let you know, I'm feeling so happy right now that we all got on this video call on time because I know we've been struggling with that. So what I'd like is to end it 10 minutes early as a reward or whatever. You can practice it in the positive so that when something negative happens and you need to address it, it just rolls off the tongue perfectly like that. All right. We're coming up on our time. I hope I see some people saying, I'm going to try this with my wife. I use this type of stuff in all settings, and I'm telling you, it works really well with pretty much everybody. And it's like a Jedi mind trick. People don't usually know that you're doing it. So thanks everybody for listening. I do have an important announcement though, and a bit of a surprise. And I'm going to give you a hint on the surprise. Here is the hint. Okay. If you guessed that we are doing a Delivering Happiness podcast, you got it right. We are going full podcast mode at DH. And so we have started our Delivering Happiness podcast. We've already got a couple episodes up. So go to wherever you stream podcasts, Google Play or Apple Podcasts, or just go to our website, deliveringhappiness.com/podcast. I'm hosting along with Kelly Lay, my colleague and friend. And we're trying to make it fun. We're interviewing executives and thought leaders in the areas of work culture, the science of happiness, positive psychology. And it's been a lot of fun so far. We've got some more really fun episodes getting posted here soon. So check us out, download it, give us a great rating if you like, and put me in your earbuds.
Thank you so much, Paul. That was really great. I'm thinking about all the things I can implement either with our team at DH, because sometimes I'm like, oh, Mondays. Let's be honest, my Slack messages on Mondays are usually jokes about how I don't want to be working. So I am really excited. I love listening to this, and I'm really excited about the podcast. So if you guys haven't listened to it yet, it's really great. We have a bunch of episodes already available for you. Paul, as he said, is the host. And if you enjoyed his voice on this, we always say Paul has the best voice for live things. Now you can listen to him in your earbuds. So we're very excited. I know
I'm glad it's not. He has the best face for podcasts.
No, it's great. It's great.
Good.
But he does use a great radio voice. So I hope that you'll all tune in for our podcast. And a few people have asked if this live is going to be saved. And the answer is yes. We simultaneously stream this across LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. And it's set up so it will automatically save, and it will give you a link like normal, and you can share that link with your team since a number of people asked if this would be shareable. It is. on all of those platforms. So whichever platform is best for you, you can find us at this point. So thank you so much for coming. This was really great. We'll be doing some more live events. The next date is a little bit up in the air. We're waiting on one thing, but we hope that you will join us next time as well. So thank you again, and everyone have a great Wednesday. Thank you, Paul.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Joining us. All right, everyone, have a great time, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.